I'm Hannah.
And I'm Gracie Elliott. Our topic is prison reform, and we are now open for questions.
Why do our prisons need reforming?
You're good.
Well, the purpose of prison reform is to improve the quality of the services inside the prison, and it's also to maybe provide alternatives to incarceration. It also helps the correctional education facility be like a more positive for prisoners in prison and for when they become like back into society.
Wait, you just said services in a prison. It's a prison. Why do they need services? They've done something bad.
Yes. So about 7 in 10 people that are formerly incarcerated are half of them end up back in prison, or 7 out of 10 end up back in prison, but half of that number that happens in at least 3 years. So with the help of education and given the opportunity for rehabilitation, they're able to not just benefit themselves and their future, but it makes the community better as a whole and just like a safer environment.
To go off Aaron's point, I actually did some research on a study that was done. In 2005 to 2014, it was a 9-year study, and they found that 83% of state prisoners released in 2005 across 30 states were arrested at least once during the 9 years, and a large percentage of that as well were arrested more than just once during that 9 years.
All right. So, people by definition that have been arrested in prison, is that correct?
Yes.
Why were they arrested?
Many different things. I mean, I have...
Paint it with a broad brush.
There's
They did-
49.5% of inmates that are in prison for drug offenses.
Okay. So, let's just assume they did something bad.
Yes.
Probably something they weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
Probably, actually, by definition, something against the law.
Yes.
Right, and they're in prison to do what?
Time
To
to pay back the consequences of their actions.
punish them?
Yes.
Punish them, okay. If we're putting them in prison to punish them, why do we need to improve the quality of the services?
So just because they're receiving education in the prison doesn't mean that their sentence is going to be any shorter or anything like that. It's still a punishment,
Okay.
but it's been proven that just even receiving education, directors of these programs have noticed just improvement in their conduct. It reduces recidivism, but also just they behave and get along better.
Yeah. Aaron, if I grew up in abject poverty in extreme eastern Kentucky, maybe we'll call it the foothills of Appalachia, wouldn't I love to be at a place where they feed me 3 square meals a day, I've got a place to rest my head every night, and I get educational opportunities and whatever other quality services are offered to me?
Yes.
So should I go to prison?
No, so that is also like an issue that some people in poverty who commit crimes on purpose because that is an advantage for them if they have nothing outside of prison.
3 square meals a day in a workout facility?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's something that like
That's why that we believe that the prison system should be reformed, is because there needs to be a balance of, yes, this needs to be deterring other people from coming to prison, but also making sure that people that do come to prison are able to go back into society and not come back after they get released.
So, I guess we'll back up just a little bit. What does your panel believe should be the primary purpose of a prison or a prison sentence?
I can start. I believe that prison should deter other people from committing the crimes. I believe that prison is to obviously show people that like what they did is wrong. I mean, I think that we could all agree on that. But I also do believe that prison should be not taking extreme measures. Like, it's not supposed to be sunshine and butterflies, but making sure that if someone has committed the crime, they've come in, they've done their sentence, they can go back out into the real world and still succeed, so that they don't end up falling back into this vicious cycle, this revolving door of the prison system.
So let's talk a little bit about the structure of this prison system we're talking about. Tell me how the prison system works. Are there tiers to it? Are there, I mean, is one prison the same as another prison? Give me a little definition about what we're talking about.
I actually researched the difference specifically also between jails and prisons and different security levels, and I'm going to refer to my notes so I don't butcher that, because I know that, I mean, that's a little above me. But, so the difference between a jail and a prison is the length of stay for the inmates. Jails are run usually by the local law enforcement, and then prisons are usually like the federal government.
But we're not reforming jails, we're reforming prisons.
Prisons,
right?
yes, specifically.
Keep going.
So I'll go ahead and talk about the differences between the security levels of federal prisons. So minimum security houses approximately 17%, and this is obviously not the people that have committed these heinous, like serial killers are not being in minimum security prison. That's what I'm getting at. Then there's low security, which houses 38%, medium security, high security, and then administrative security prisons, which I hadn't even like heard of before I did this research. But that includes like federal medical centers, transfer centers, and metropolitan like correctional centers.
As an administrator, I'm more worried about that administrative person.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. And do.
I think that we asked this already, but maybe you got sidetracked just a little bit. So what are some of the reasons why prisons need to be reformed? What are some of the issues that you see?
Some of the issues that like causes when people come back into society, recidivism. Yeah. So the goal is with prison reform is try to get that number lower so that people can enter back into society and go back not to like the normal, but just to like not that life of crime that got them into prison, because right now there's so many people coming back and then re-offending that it's just sending them right back where they came from.
And I think Mila, you did some research on specific problems inside
Yeah.
of prison.
So specific problems would be there's a big health issue. There's HIV and stuff going around because they're in small space usually. There's a lot of putting prisons, like overpacking prisons and overcrowding. Yeah. They don't have that good of healthcare. They just have the basic needs like the checkups and then dental checkups. They don't have like if you get sick, you know.
So they don't get treated when they're ill?
Well, they do, but like obviously it's comforting.
If I can back up just for a second on that particular point. So you mentioned recidivism, healthcare, and overcrowding, healthcare in particular. There's some people that work jobs that can't afford healthcare. Why should we do this right? Is that a basic human right?
Yeah, that's not our fair.
Hopefully.
Sorry.
No, go right ahead, it's a valid question, but it opens up.
You said there is some health care available, but there's not some other health care available. Do we know anything about where does that stop and start? If I break an arm, can I have surgery to have it reset, or is that out of the bounds of what they can cover?
I don't know if this is exactly what Mila was talking about, but I'm going to address Mr. Small's tricky little question here. So normally, I know there's a big debate on whether healthcare, like everybody, like the single payer healthcare system, we heard a lot about that this past week, but versus like the prisons, why should they be getting it? I haven't prepared this argument, but just, offhandedly, if, the government's like these people's parents in this situation, that's not how I would view, like the government, that they're taking, like they're housing these people, they're taking care of these people, per se. So in that situation, I would say it's their, I hate to say this, but I would say it's their role in that situation to be offering these people healthcare, like to be providing healthcare, as much as it pains.
To what end?
Until they get out of prison.
Well, I'm saying in the healthcare treatment, if you've got cancer, do I have to give you the most late-breaking cancer drugs and treatments and radiation? If you've got gender identity situations, do I need to give you gender reassignment surgery? I know that's been in the news a lot.
I would say only if it's like necessary.
Okay, so basic needs?
Basic needs, yeah.
Okay.
So like I would not classify like if an individual is trying to transition,
Right.
and once those hormones, that I don't believe that they should be using our money for.
But if they're like diabetic?
If they're diabetic, yes, insulin. I would classify that as a necessary
Okay.
treatment plan.
What if they go into prison and are already on those medications?
Like hormones?
Or,
I would say that-
or other medications that maybe aren't essential to basic functions?
Well, if it would be something like hormones that, I mean, if you stop taking them, you're not going to die, that kind of thing, I would say no. Like, they're gonna stop.
You mean
Again,
like-
we didn't really focus our
Yeah.
research on if people should be
Did you mean like
taking
antidepressants and like other hormonal drugs like that as a Well, I'm saying if you needed it to a certain point, wouldn't that just mean you wouldn't go to prison, you'd go to a mental institution?
So there's not mental health issues in prison?
Oh,
There is.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you treating?
Antipsychotics?
There aren't many like The prisoners, their mental health is more, they don't have an opportunity to like talk about it and stuff. They just,
So they don't have group therapy or counseling sessions and things like that?
There would be group therapy sessions, but those haven't always been proven to be as beneficial.
In the prison or out of the prison?
I would say more in like the prison, because that is kind of like the only thing offered inside of prison, whereas an individual on the outside could choose if they, like if group therapy would be beneficial for them, but an individual in prison, that's really their only kind of.
So, I think, and nod of heads, but you all agree that we shouldn't offer the full panacea of all medical options to everybody in prison, right? There should be some
Okay.
level where you go, you can get to here, but not past that, right? Who decides what they get? If they get that antipsychotic medication, or if they get that hormone treatment, or if they get that whatever medication, who sets that limit and decides, this is what you can get, this is what you can't get?
I feel like each state should be individual person.
So it's a state's rights issue?
Well, since these would be federal prisons, I would probably say that the Bureau of Prisons should, like, in some capacity.
Would they be federal prisons?
If we're talking about federal prisons, yes,
We're
but
talking about
depending on
state
which prison,
prisons.
obviously. If it's a state prison, I believe that it should be left to the state, but if it's a federal prison, to the federal prison.
So one state could say, yes, you're qualified to get an antipsychotic medication, and another state could say, no, our prisoners don't get that.
If that's what the state wants to do for their state prisons.
Why do you feel like the state is the best person to make that decision?
I mean, I'm just kind of like a more power to the states kind of girl, so that's kind of why I'm on that side.
Is that how you roll?
Yeah.
Could that be tied to tax dollars maybe?
Yeah, however the state deems however they feel like the tax dollars be allocated, like to their benefit, I guess.
All right, let me take that one step further, Hannah. If I'm I'm going to say patient, if I'm an inmate in a state prison and they refuse me whatever this medication is, I've decided that I need, whether it's medically necessary or not, should I have the right to sue that prison or sue that state if they're withholding that from me because they've decided that I'm not allowed to have it, but I think I should?
You mean regardless of if it's medically necessary?
Absolutely. If I just decide that I need it, they're refusing it to me for whatever reason, should I be able to sue them for that?
I would say no,
Okay, why?
just because I feel like if it was medically necessary, they would give you those privileges, I guess. But in a case where if someone just wanted it because they thought it was necessary, but it really wasn't in reality, then they should be able to sue them for it.
I think more often than not, prisoners are looked at as victims instead of, we often forget that they're in there for a reason and that they're supposed to be punished and stuff, and there's a whole lot that, when it comes to certain things that were denied certain human rights, when in most cases, these people, the reason they're in there is for doing something wrong to someone else's human rights. So more often than not, they're looked at as victims.
Let me ask you this, Karen. Do you, and you may not have researched this if you don't know, have you looked at how the United States prison stacks up against prisons in other countries in terms of human rights and the way we treat our prisoners?
I actually researched that a lot. So this is just like a statistic, but the U.S. locks up 25% of the prison population all over the world. And I think that that's a good reason for the U.S. to want to reform more. But I really have a specific example. I really was looking into Norway because their prison reform is really different than ours. They have an open prison, theory, or they actually implement it, so it's actually, but it allows inmates to take part in some recreational activities and to work in the facilities like farms and just do little housework kind of stuff within the prison. There's an example of they repair bikes or something, and they kind of have that idea of the rehabilitation aspect is most important, and I think that is something to take interest in here.
So we don't provide jobs to our inmates here?
We do to a certain extent, I would say.
Just as a question, follow-up question to that, are there recidivism rates lower because of this program?
Yes.
At least in this district?
I don't have the statistics, but I do have that their recidivism rates are lower, which will, because they're so much lower than ours, I don't really exactly know how much, but it in the long run is saving them money. It costs a lot then for all the extra perks, I guess, for the inmates. But per person, it costs a lot more than the U.S. per person. annually. But their recidivism rates are so much lower that in the long run it is saving them, rather than just keep on, people who reoffend and keep getting in like those normal privileges.
So I'm just a little bit confused though. So if our inmates don't work jobs and they don't get free time, what do prisoners in the United States do all day? Because I thought they had jobs and that they got exercise time, which is what you're talking about. They do in
Yeah.
Norway. That's so great. I'm like, we do that here.
I actually did a lot of research on like licensing opportunities in prison. I've watched a lot of documentaries where women or even men have the opportunity to get their cosmetology license while they're in prison, and that also has been shown like those individuals have a higher success rate outside of prison. And I actually came across a resource where a inmate, I can't remember what state he's in, but detailed like a day in his life, a day in the life of an inmate. And there are certain opportunities for individuals that have good behavior. And something that he had mentioned, and I actually did some research on it to find it, there's pet partnership programs where inmates have the opportunity to raise a service dog that will then be obviously sent out into the community for someone in need, which I think is a great program because it teaches that inmate responsibility and accountability while providing a good for someone with a disability that needs obviously a service animal. And the First Step Act, which was recently signed by Donald Trump in December, is actually granting money to more states to research their licensing laws and opportunities. And that's something that, especially in these past few years, has been a major push to make sure that those prisons are including and are expanding upon these job programs within their walls.
Shift gears just a little bit. Neil, I was reading in your prompt here, and by the way, this is the first one I've ever seen you guys identified with each person research, so that's awesome for me. That's very helpful. You listed overcrowding, poor health care, gang activity, as mental health as all different issues in prisons.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about the gang activity. I'd like to know, and I've unfortunately watched way too many documentaries as well, and it's pretty scary to see kind of the things that happen inside of prisons, especially as it relates to gangs and the violence thereof. Tell me a little bit about gang activity in prisons. Tell me about what gangs are prevalent. Is it more or less prevalent in prison than it is outside? How do people join gangs? Do people join gangs? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Usually with gangs, people in prison were in them before they came to prison.
So we're doing the same thing inside that we were doing outside?
Yeah, but it's, they can't do as much for their gang, but, so they
You're good. You're good.
so essentially they still try to do like their dealings and stuff within prisons, but it's more like if they're gang leaders in the prison, they still like contact them and they still do this stuff. It's more prevalent outside than it is inside, I believe.
So the gangs inside of prison mirror the gangs outside. There's not just a specific prison gang. It's usually a subset of a gang that's outside as well.
It's usually like they came from a gang. They were
Like a
arrested.
Bloods or a Crips or a MS-13 or whatever. That same thing is inside the prison. Now, the people who join gangs in prison, did you research reveal that those are always people who are associated with gangs outside of prison? And if not, what's their encouragement to, or why would they want to join a gang in prison? Do you yourself right? They have to hit your areas as well.
Again, like with the whole documentary thing,
Yeah.
From what I've found, I didn't specifically research this for this panel, but I would argue that gangs in prisons are actually more prevalent. Like it's all the same gangs that would be on the outside, but it's in a smaller like space because I mean normally obviously like there's gang here, but in prison all of these people are pushed into one small area. And I would say that a lot of people that join gangs in prison are doing that for protection because, you know, if you're in with, I only know of a few gangs with the Aryan Brotherhood, there's all those kind of great, lovely people.
Yes.
They're doing that to make sure that their prison stay is as safe as possible because they think that that will protect them from other people trying to hurt them.
Okay, so my follow-up to that is, how do prisoners tend to pair off in prison? You don't usually want to be a loner.
Yeah.
We'll use the term loner in prison.
Yeah.
How do we see that prison populations typically start? I mean, there's gang affiliations.